Hello, everybody. Welcome to our workshop on how to apply for an MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship. We are really glad to have you here, especially as the call officially opens today. So it's the perfect moment to start planning a strong application. My name is José Batista from Cogitati Press, and I'll be facilitating the session today. You'll see also on your screen in a bit, you'll be hearing from him, Dr. Lauri Keskinen, Senior Grant Writer at the University of Turku, who has an extensive experience in MSCA funding and evaluation. But before we start, I just have a few housekeeping notes that I want to share with you. You're welcome to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A box in Zoom. Please do not confuse it for the regular chats in which the attendees are typing right now, where they're from. There's another comment section called Q&A. That is where you should leave your questions, and you're free to do so all throughout the webinar. We also encourage you to do so before we reach the end of the presentations, because it gives us time to sort all of the questions that we'll be posing to Dr. Lauri. So we'll be collecting them throughout the session, grouping similar ones, and selecting as many as we can for the live Q&A at the end. We will stick to the 2-hour limit that we have set previously for the scheduling of the session, and we will provide a contact in which you can pose further questions if you wish via email. If you see that someone has put forth a question that interests you or a question that you would have made as well, you can upvote that question as well in the Q&A section so that we don't repeat questions, that we also know which questions are more relevant to be answered in that section. Finally, this session is being recorded and it will be made available via YouTube after the event. We'll share the link with all registered participants once it's been uploaded via email as well. After the session, you'll be presented with a little satisfaction form, let's say. We'll be happy if you could answer those questions as well, because it will help us to provide more content like this that interests our academic community. So from my end, I have nothing else to say, and without further ado, we'll get started. Lauri, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'll just share my presentation. Just a moment. Is that okay? Seems fine.
Yeah, I need to put it in presentation mode. Yeah, exactly. We can see it perfectly.
Great. Okay, so welcome all to this workshop, or maybe an info session would be an even better word for it. So today, for the next 2 hours or so, we'll be talking about how to apply for an MSCA Postdoctoral Fellowship. And I'll be mainly talking from the perspective of SSH, so the Social Sciences and Humanities, because that's my field. But then again, I think that everything that I'm going to be saying and all the guidelines that I'll be giving, I think they apply to other fields as well. So as was mentioned, my name is Lauri Keskinen. I'm a senior grant writer at the University of Turku. That's located in Finland, the northern part of Europe. And I just wanted to say upfront that this is really an exciting day in a way, because the 2025 call was launched earlier today. So basically everything is now up and running, and you could even at this moment begin your proposal in the funding and tenders portal, which is used to submit the proposals. But I guess that before you can begin drafting your own proposal, you'll need some advice, and hopefully I'll be able to provide you with it. So let's get going. So just briefly about the workshop schedule. So for around 20 minutes or so, I'll be talking about the MSCA PF basics, By the way, I'll be using the acronym MSCA instead of Marie Sklodowska-Curie, which is the full name. So that'll take about 20 minutes. I'll be talking about the eligibility criteria and all of the basic guidelines of applying. Once that's done, I'll move on to describing the review process. So basically how proposals are evaluated and what the reviewers will be looking for in the proposals. That'll also take around 20 minutes or so. And once those are done, I'll be moving on to the main content of the workshop. So that's about how to write a winning proposal, what makes an MSCA application stand out, and this I'll be doing with a focus from the field of SSH, and that'll take around 35 minutes or so. And I know that I could be talking about this topic for hours and hours, but I'll try to condense it into, say, 35 minutes. And then lastly, I'll be talking just briefly about my home university, the University of Turku, and what it could offer to you as applicants if you were willing to apply here to conduct your postdoctoral fellowship. And then once that's done, we'll be moving on to the Q&A. So let's get started with the basics. So the MSCA actions have been around since 1996. And since that time, they have been focused on researcher training and mobility, international and intersectoral mobility, and they have always been about the bottom-up approach. So basically, you could say that these three things combined, they really make up the MSCA actions. So what they are about. And since 1996, MSCA has provided funding for over 150,000 researchers across the globe, and you would also say that the MSCA actions are one of the most the highest rated funding available within the European Union, along with say ERC. So MSCA is situated in Horizon Europe, and that Horizon Europe is made up of three pillars. So the first one is about excellent science, and I don't need to go into the details about the other two pillars, but I just wanted to mention that MSCA is located in Pillar 1, which is all about excellent science, and it also houses the European Research Council funds, so the ERCs, and I think it's important for the applicants to understand where it's located in order for them to really address all the review criteria of the MSCA proposals. So Horizon Europe is up and running, and it'll be running until 2027, so a few more years to go. And in total, it has a budget of almost 100 billion euros. And of course, MSCA is just a small part of it, but then again, also quite a visible part of it. So under MSCA, there are several different funding instruments. So the postdoctoral fellowships are just one of them. There are also doctoral networks being funded, and they also fund staff exchange and also co-fund, which means that MSCA co-funds doctoral and also postdoctoral programs. And then lastly, there are these public outreach events which are funded through the MSCA and Citizens Instrument. But today we'll be talking exclusively about postdoctoral fellowships. And just earlier today, when the call was launched, I learned that's a bit over 270 million euros are reserved for the postdoctoral fellowships, and 230 or so million will be going to the European postdoctoral fellowships, and then around 40 million will be going to the global fellowships. And just in a minute, I'll be giving you some additional details about what it means to apply for either the European one or the global fellowship. But I was a bit sad to learn about the allocated funding, because it was a bit smaller than was anticipated. So in previous years it has been we have seen funding of even over 400 million euros, but basically it just means that there will be tough competition in the call, which is ending in September. So moving on to the postdoctoral fellowship aims. So the first aim is to enhance the creative and innovative potential of researchers holding a PhD and who wish to acquire new skills through advanced training, international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary mobility. And I've underlined these three key words, so international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary. And these are the so-called 3 I's of MSCA. And I believe they really encapsulate the spirit and the overall aim of all of the MSCA instruments. So not just the postdoctoral fellowships, but all of the other instruments as well that I mentioned in the previous slide. So do keep these in mind when you are drafting your own proposal. And then secondly, the second aim of these postdoctoral fellowships is to foster excellence through training and mobility, and to equip researchers with new skills and competences in order to identify solutions to current and future challenges. And here I just wanted to briefly touch upon the subject of training, because briefly I've come across applicants who were willing to apply for the postdoctoral fellowship, but then again they felt that they really don't need any more training in their career stage. But I had to to comment that sadly then maybe the PF funding is not for you, because the applicants should in a way be quite humble and be able to say that okay, so there are still significant things I will need to learn during or throughout my postdoctoral stage in order to advance my own career and increase my employability. But with that, I have prepared just a short quiz for you. So Jay, if you could bring it up. I don't know if I can see it yet because I'm presenting, but Yes. So there it is. So estimate how much time you are. Okay, so so this was actually going to be the last question. So Jay, if it's not too much trouble, could you bring up the
Yes.
first one?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
The duration.
Yes. So what are the possible durations of MSCA PF projects? And I know that I didn't mention the right answer to you, but I just wanted to pose this question to you and to just try to see what kind of knowledge you already have at this point about the instrument that we are talking about. So is there a way for me to see the answers coming in? I'm dying to know what our attendees are answering.
Okay, let's end the poll and share results.
Okay. So we have two equal options, 44% for each. So 12 to 24 months, and then 24 to 36 months. And then we have also some votes for 24 to 42 months. And the answer is that every one of these is a possible duration for an MSCA PF project. And I just wanted to pose this because I think it just shows that that there are multiple options for you in when preparing your application or your proposal, and you are not just limited to like a specific duration. But I'll then continue with my presentation. And now I'll explain a bit more about the duration of the project. So MSCA PF, that's just one program, but it does have two schemes. So as I mentioned, European Postdoctoral Fellowships and then the Global Postdoctoral Fellowships. And I also mentioned the funding that is allocated to each of those. And from those numbers, I'm guessing you were able to see that the European Postdoctoral Fellowships are much more, well, they are more funded than the global ones. So there is more funding available in the European Postdoctoral Fellowships. So in the European ones, the duration is 12 to 24 months. But you can also include a so-called NAP, which is a non-academic placement. Now, that is an additional period of up to 6 months in a non-academic institution. And this has to be in an EU country or an associated country. And that takes place after the end of the standard project duration. And you can also have a non-academic placement if you apply for the Global Postdoctoral Fellowship. But returning to the European one, so about mobility, This can be applied by researchers of any nationality. So outside of Europe, when they are coming into Europe, or European citizens who are applying to some other European country. And then the beneficiary, so basically the host organization that will be getting the funding and then giving it out to you as salary. That'll be an organization in an EU country. And then moving on to these global postdoctoral fellowships, their duration is a bit longer. So it's 24 to 36 months plus the NAP of 6 months that I mentioned. Hence, you could have the duration of 24 to actually 42 months if you include the NAP. So what this means is that you will have a so-called outgoing phase. So that's between 1 and 2 years. So that will be in a third country. So somewhere outside than Europe. And then you will also have a mandatory 12-month return phase to Europe. And again, the beneficiary will be within Europe. And in both of these schemes, you can include secondments, and these can be up to 1/3 of the project duration. So 1/3 of the European Postdoctoral Fellowship duration. So basically, if you're applying for 2 years, then you could spend up to 8 months in an academic or non-academic institution, basically anywhere in the world. And then in the global postdoctoral fellowships, there you can also have a secondment of up to 1/3 of the outgoing phase. So the phase that is outside of Europe. And as I said, that's between 1 and 2 years. And this second into multiple sections. So for example, if you are having a secondment of say 6 months, you don't have to spend all of 6 months in a row, but you can divide it into say 3 parts and then spend like 2 months and 2 months, and then the last 2 months in the secondment institution. And then just briefly about short stays. Now these are different from the secondments. So these are just let's say their duration might be some weeks or so, and these can be anywhere in the world. So basically these are for say collecting data or maybe doing some sort of research visits or conferences or stuff like that. So in that way, they are quite different from the secondments. Okay, so then let's move on to the eligibility criteria. So for this year and this year's call, the applicant must possess a doctoral degree at the date of the call deadline. So that's September 10th. But applicants who have successfully defended their doctoral degree are also considered eligible. And at the call deadline, you must have at maximum 8 years of full-time research experience after completing your PhD. And for some cases and some applicants, this might be a bit difficult to calculate. However, there's a tool for calculating this, and it's found among the core documents in the funding and tenders portal, which is used to submit your proposal.
Yeah, we have left the link to that calculator in the chat, so
Great.
you can access it right now.
Great. So I haven't used it myself, but what I've heard from some of the applicants, they say that it's quite easy to use. So, for example, if you have been, say, outside of research, or maybe on maternal or paternity leave, then these kind of cases mean that of course you're not then doing full-time research, but you're outside of research, and that means that your eligibility window, if you could say, is made longer. And then finally, there's a mobility rule, which is of course connected to the international aspect of the funding. So the applicant must not have resided or carried out their main activity in the country of the beneficiary for more than 12 months in the preceding 36 months before the call deadline. And then lastly, proposals involving the same host organization and the same individual researcher submitted to the last PF call, so the PF call of 2024, and having received a score of less than 70% must not be resubmitted. But however, so in that case, if you want to reapply and you got less than 70%, your option is to apply somewhere else. So so basically that would be your the easiest solution. Okay, so then let's move on to seeing what the proposal is really about. So just briefly about the proposal structure, and it begins with a so-called Part A. So these are the administrative forms, and these are basically the same as you would have in say any other Horizon Europe application. These are quite similar in all of them. And I think in the next slide I have some additional details about the Part A and what it entails. And then the Part B, which is the actual research proposal, that is composed of B1, which is 10 pages long. That's the actual research proposal, and then there's the B2. There's no page limit attached to it, but usually it's under 10 pages. And in the coming slides, I'll be providing you with some more details about what the Part A means and also B1 and B2. So Part A, it does have a lot of things to answer and a lot of things to address. But then again, most of these are quite easy to answer. So really basic stuff, like the information about the host organization and the supervisor, and of course your personal details and stuff like that. But then again, I'm hoping that all of you give at least a few days to fill out the Part A, because it does include all of the ethics information about your proposal, and those kind of issues might take quite long to address. But I just wanted to point out from Part A something something quite important, and that's quite early on in part A. You'll be asked about the scientific area of your proposal, which basically means the panel that your proposal will be going to and then reviewed within that panel. And once you select a panel, you'll also be asked to give up to 5 descriptors. So basically, these are used to just give additional details about the more detailed topic of your proposal. And then finally, you'll be able to provide 3 keywords. And these influence the selection of reviewers. So pay close attention when selecting and filling out these, because that way you will be able to, or you will at least try to get the audience for your proposal that you are looking for. So basically, the experts that are relevant to your proposal. Okay. Then moving on to B1. So use the official MSCA PF 2025 template from the start, and follow all of the given headings and formatting and stuff like that. All of the specific guidelines are included within the template, and there are instructions with it or included in it, and you can remove these, but do keep the tags because they are needed for I'm guessing the review process. And you are not allowed to include any cover pages or summary tables, because you will have to include everything you want in the 10 pages that is given for your research proposal. So it's a technical description of the scientific work, and it's divided into 3 sections. So excellence, impact, and then finally quality and efficiency of the implementation. And then moving on to B2, again, use the official template. Once you get your proposal going in the funding and tenders portal, you will be able to download these templates in Word format, and then you can just simply begin filling them out. And there's no overall page limit for B2, and that includes your CV. This has usually been around 5 pages or so. And then information about the participating organizations, and if you want to say more about the ethical aspects of your proposal. And then finally, if you are applying for the global fellowship, you will need to include a letter of commitment from the so-called associated partner organization, which is the hosting organization outside of Europe. But if you are applying for the European fellowship, you don't need to attach anything else. So no letters of commitment are required. Okay, then let's move on to the review process. And at this point, when I'm moving on to the next stage or section of my presentation, I just wanted to remind you that you can keep on posting your questions in the Q&A, so you don't have to wait until I'm finished. So if something came up in the first part of my presentation, just post it as a question.
Yeah, Lauri, thank you for reminding us of that. Just so I can give another reminder as well, because people keep coming in and going out. I've been leaving this information in the chat. Since we're getting a lot of questions, feel free to pose your own question, but pay attention as well to the questions that have been already made, because we are posing the questions by the number of upvotes that they get in the Q&A chat. So some questions that I've seen that are about the same topic, I've grouped them as well, and I'll pose them all together at once. And then we're going to go through the questions as the number of upvotes that they have. So please pay attention if someone has already made a question that you already want to see answered, or leave your own if you don't see it there as well. And yeah, that's it. You can carry on, Lauri.
Okay, good. So talking about the evaluation process, of course, this is a really large-scale evaluation process in total, because in the previous years, we have seen over 10,000 applications for the PF instrument. And each of the proposals will be reviewed by 3 experts. And since this is a bottom-up program, it means that both proposals and experts are basically from all disciplines. And the European Commission tries to find an expert balance. So they are trying to balance experience, nationality, gender, age, sector, etc. And once you submit your proposal, as I said, you'll need to choose the best panel for it. And there are 8 panels. So for chemistry, social sciences, and humanities, actually that's the panel that I have been working in for, I think, around 4 calls or so. So I'm guessing the next, so this call, if I'm still called in as an expert, would be maybe my fifth time as an expert reviewer. And then economic sciences, information science and engineering, environment and geosciences, life sciences, mathematics, and physics. And this is a so-called single-stage evaluation. It basically means that you will just have to submit once, and that's it from your end. Then you can just start to wait for the for the reviews to come in. So there's no need for you to do any more extra, as in, say, ERC, which has a 2-stage evaluation process. And now, Jay, if you could bring up the second quiz, it's related to evaluation. Let's see if you can find the right one.
I'll wait for the results to stabilize a little bit, and then I'll share the results after.
Good. While we are waiting for the answers to come in, you can see behind me that I'm enjoying this lovely entrance to my home university in Turku. It's a lovely spring day here.
All right.
Not kidding, it actually is.
We'll share the results now.
Okay, in the last PF call, what was the lowest score to receive funding? And this is out of 100. So it was either 91 or 91.4 or 96.0. And the correct answer is 91.4. And if I remember right, that was from the panel of mathematics. So it just means that you really do have to score high in order to get funded. Fun fact: I myself applied for MSCA PF twice. When I applied for the first time, then it was called IF, so individual fellowships, and at best I scored around just a bit over 90, and didn't get the funding. And after that, I applied for my current job, and still here I am talking about MSCA. So let's move on, and I'll try to find my presentation. Yes. So 3 experts will be reviewing the one proposal, and each of them will be writing an individual evaluation report on it. And once those are done, they will have a so-called consensus discussion, where they will basically merge all of the individual evaluation reports, and once they decide on the wording of the criteria, so the strengths and weaknesses, then they can move on to the scoring, and then they will be scoring each of the different sections of the proposal. And here is some additional details about the award criteria. So it's divided into 3 sections, as the proposal is also. So excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. And the excellence part, so the excellence criterion, if you get full points from it, you can get at most 50% of your scores. So that means that it's the most important section of the entire proposal. And then the impact, that counts for up to 30% of your points. And then lastly, the implementation part, that is up to 20% of the entire score. So basically the most scores that you can get is 100. And you will need to get at least 70 points or 70% of the scores in order to be considered for the funding. So if you receive less, unfortunately, you don't have a chance of getting funding. And a seal of excellence is granted or awarded to the applications with a total score of 85 or more. And well, this is, you could just call it like a nice gesture from the funder's side, because this is something that you can, for example, mention in your CV, saying that you took part in this evaluation exercise and you were highly scored, but didn't receive the funding. Okay, let's look at the awarding criteria in a bit more detail. So first up, the excellence section. As I said, this is the most important section, and do prepare this one together with your supervisor. This is of utmost importance, and later on I'll be talking about why you need to draft this with your supervisor. So the excellence section is about introducing your project. So present clear research questions and objectives, and also your methodology or approach. And you will need to justify your project's novelty and innovativeness. and of course, what is the grand challenge that you are aiming to solve, and also why it's important and timely. And you will also need to address the cross-cutting issues in the context of your project. So these include gender, interdisciplinarity, and open science. And then also within the excellence section, emphasize the two-way transfer of knowledge. So basically, the transfer of knowledge between you as the applicant and the host institution, and of course the supervisor who is in the host institution. You will need to convince the reviewers what makes you and the host a good match, and yes, also convince the reviewer about the transfer of knowledge from the host to the researcher, and also other way around. And then present clear training needs and include training objectives. So I would say that these training objectives are just as important as the actual research objectives. And just a quick note, so each section, so for example, excellence here, each section has subheadings that must be used, and they are provided to you in the proposal template. And remember that these correspond directly to the review criteria. And so basically you can use them to do like a self-assessment of your proposal. So for example, you can ask yourself and the proposal that you are preparing, what is the quality of the supervision, or how is the quality of supervision presented in the proposal, and what is the quality of the training and the two-way transfer of knowledge between the researcher and the host. So in that way, you can try to continually like criticize yourself and see whether you have answered the questions that are posed in the proposal template. And then the impact part, as I said, this can account up to 30% of the score. So you will need to describe your expected skill development and impact on your career perspectives, either inside or outside academia, based on what is your preference. So basically, at the point of applying, you can decide to either go with the academic side and say that your long-term career idea is to keep doing research and stick to the academic side, or either you can say that you'll be doing this postdoctoral fellowship and then try to move towards something outside of academia. And show how this project will enhance your profile and improve your employability. And then also tell how this project will help you to achieve your career goals and long-term plans beyond the fellowship. And also in the impact section, you will need to notice the difference between expected outcomes. So these are on the medium term, and the impacts, which are on the long term. And you will have to be really clear about how the project results contribute to the expected outcomes and the impacts. And also you will need to be clear and also have a clear understanding of the difference between dissemination, exploitation, and communication. And you will need to address all of them in this section. So basically, in a nutshell, Communication is about spreading the word about your proposal or project. So what it's about and also about what the MSCA funding is about. And then dissemination is basically you informing the key target audiences of your project results. So it's usually the academic field, and then exploitation, that will be about how your project results are actually used, and that is something that can or mostly happens after your project period. And then finally, implementation. So 20% of a score. Do have a clear work plan. So try to answer questions like what, how, who, and when. And in this section, you will need to describe work packages, deliverables, milestones, secondments, and placements. And a Gantt chart is mandatory in this section. And you will also need to provide a risk analysis. So basically a risk table. But of all of these sections, I do have some more details in the coming slides. I just wanted to provide you with this like brief introduction into the evaluation process of the proposals. This is just to give you some more insights on what the reviewers will be looking for when they are reviewing your proposal. And then moving on to writing a winning PF proposal. And so briefly about the aim of this part of the presentation. So I'll try to provide you with some tips to improve the quality of your proposal. And these mostly come from the weaknesses that I have witnessed in previous proposals, and but of course the strengths also, and maybe even not just limited to PF proposals, but proposals in general that I have seen during my career. So there are a lot of things that can be learned from other instruments and their proposals as well. But do keep in mind that these are technical in a sense, my tips. So I will not be able to improve the quality of your research with these tips. And of course, that would be the most important thing. But I will have other kinds of tips and guidelines for you to improve the quality of your proposal. But I think that the single most effective tip that I can give you, and I think that any other person can also give you at this point of proposal preparation, is that you really do need to draft the proposal in close cooperation with your supervisor. There really is no way to draft a winning proposal just by yourself. And the reasoning behind this is that the supervisors, they should know more about the topic, or at least the context of the proposal and the topic than you will know, because they are more experienced. And the supervisors are in a career stage where they are likely to be reviewers, i.e. they are actually your target audience. So that's why it's good to give them something to read and then ask for their critical view on what you have written. And finally, they do know the host organization much better than you, because there's a limit of what you can say about the host organization by just browsing through their website. But then again, the supervisors have usually been within that organization for several or even tens of years, and they know how it works and who the other researchers are, and for example, what is the infrastructure that can be used by you and your project. So MSCA PF, that is really more than a research project. So as I've said previously, it's a combination of scientific excellence, training, and then also you as the researcher. So basically, if you keep these three things in mind constantly when drafting your proposal, I think it'll really benefit your proposal writing, because you will need to show how these three are interlinked at all times. So basically, using the scientific project as a way to train you as a researcher, and then increasing your employability and also creating impact within the scientific arena, but also societal impact. Okay, then let's move on to some more details. And this is about how to draft your research objectives. So the quality and pertinence of objectives is among the key criteria of the proposal review. And your objectives need to be SMART. And so it means that, for example, you will need to set measurable indicators and target values for each objective. And just for fun, I tried to create one example objective. So this is RO1, so Research Objective 1, to add knowledge of the role of cats as household pets in the 15th century Europe by compiling a dataset of 10,000 data points. So for example, in this case and in this objective, you would have an indicator of a data set, and the target value would be 1 with at least 10,000 data points covering at least 4 European countries. And I know that this is just like a fun example, but I'm hoping that it provides you some insight into what the indicators could be. So also each objective must be backed up by previous research, and hopefully it would be backed up with a combination of other people's research, but also your own, and of course your supervisor's research. And do make sure that the references are up to date, and also that your research goes beyond it. So that is something that you will have to prove or try to prove within your proposal and the excellence section. And I just wanted to mention one more thing about objectives, because in my years I've witnessed a lot of applicants having trouble with creating objectives, research objectives, and one key guideline for you would be to think of objectives in a way that what is the state of your research at the end of your project. So not at the beginning, but the end. So try to think, let's say, 2 years or 3 years in the future. So what have you accomplished within your project? And that should be the way to draft your objectives. So where are you at when the project concludes? And then still in the section of excellence, This is about training and knowledge transfer. So training activities need to be also structured around objectives as in the research, and try to divide the objectives into categories such as new scientific skills, transferable skills, and for example, management. And the aim of training is to increase your skills and thus your employability and also future career perspectives. As I said, either in academia or elsewhere. And also keep in mind that the knowledge transfer needs to benefit all of the active parties. So the applicant, the supervisor, and the host organization, and also if you include secondment organizations, so the knowledge transfer will need to also benefit them in some way. Okay, so then let's move on to the impact section of the proposal. And here first I have just some general guidance on what to keep in mind when drafting an impact part of the proposal. So keep in mind at all times that impact is expected on two fronts. So impact on your career perspectives and also impact into science, economy, and society. So it's not just one or the other, but both. So the first one, so impact on your career perspectives, that is connected to training and knowledge transfer, as these will increase your career perspectives. And the second one is connected to research objectives and their relevance to scientific fields, economy, and society. I think it's important for you to note that not all of the proposals or sorry, projects will have a high impact in all of the fields, so science, economy, and society. It is entirely okay to admit that you are going to have low impact in some of those, but then again, you will need to describe why that is so, because otherwise the reviewers will just say that this is something that hasn't been addressed in sufficient detail in the proposal. And also try to be as realistic as you can, because the reviewers will know if you are trying to say that there is going to be some impact that doesn't seem realistic. And also remember that these PF projects are actually quite short in order to create some kind of impact. So in that way, also keep in mind the realistic nature of the impact. So okay about the impact and more specifically about outcomes and impacts. Make sure that you distinguish between outcomes and impacts. So the outcomes, so these are the immediate effects of your project during or right after the project period. So for example, an outcome would be that that one of your research questions is solved, and thus research can progress in that topic. Or another example would be that with the analysis method that you have discovered, analysis costs are, say, 10% cheaper. That is also an outcome. And then try to distinguish the difference between outcomes and impacts. So impacts, these are on the longer term, and they affect scientific or societal or economic changes, and when talking about years, these might be, say, 5 to 10 years after your project has concluded. So, for example, with the new method or tool developed by your project, a new field of research is emerging. So that would be an example of an impact. And then moving on to CDE, so communication, dissemination, and exploitation. Now, once you know what your outcomes and impacts are, you can move towards defining your target groups and how they can be reached, and also how they will benefit from your results. And the CDE activities are they are something that can be, or even you would say that should be presented in a table. So a table format works really well for CDE activities. And keep in mind also that these activities run for the entire duration of the project. So basically they begin on month number 1, and as communication. However, they are soon joined by dissemination and exploitation, and these will keep going until you reach the end of your project. And also do have a social media presence. That is key for communication. Now about the implementation part still. Moving on to the implementation. So that's the final section of the B1. I just wanted to mention some things about the Gantt chart. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a mandatory chart to be included in your proposal. And the implementation part in general, that's the section that ties all of the activities together and also addresses the feasibility of your project. And the Gantt chart will actually need to include all of the activities that you have previously listed in your proposal. So the work packages, deliverables, milestones, a secondment period if you have one, and then some additional details about the work packages. So these will need to include management, and this is something that is active for the entire duration of the project, because you can't have a project running without management. And also a VP that is running for the entire project duration is the communication, dissemination, and exploitation work package. And also training is usually something that begins on month number 1. But then again, that usually concludes before the project's end. And just for fun, I tried to use AI to create a Gantt chart for a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship project. And as you can see from the results, it really didn't know what to do. So it is an awful looking Gantt chart. And I'm hoping, or I'm sure that you spot all of the errors made in the Gantt chart. Okay, about the implementation part, the risk table. I just briefly wanted to mention that since addressing risks is a mandatory part of the proposal, it is best done in table format. And I have to say that since I also tried AI in creating a risk table, this time it actually worked quite well. So it created a table with the following columns: so description of risk, and then the likelihood of it, and then the impact of it, and then finally mitigation measures. So basically, this is everything that should be included in a risk table. And I just wanted to point out that even though the AI included some high risks in the table, my advice would be to avoid high risks because PF proposals are not about high risk. So keep aiming for medium or low risks, and then of course also provide mitigation measures for those risks. Then a few thoughts on the CV, which is also a mandatory part of the proposal. If you are, or if you were a reviewer like me, I usually read the scientific proposal first, and then afterwards read the CV. So basically, I'm hoping that the scientific part of the proposal already includes everything I need to know about the applicant, or at least everything that is useful to know at that stage. And then afterwards, I tend to take a look at the CV just to make sure that everything that was said in the scientific part is actually the same as in the CV, and I also might check the number of publications from the CV, and whether the applicant has experience of working outside of their home country or stuff like that. But the main message is that try to present your skills and expertise and your career stage already in the B1. And a final tip about the CV. So select 5 to 10 publications. So your publications that are connected to the proposed project idea, and then really briefly describe under each of those how they are connected to the project idea, because I found that this gives so much useful information for the reviewers, because just simply looking at the titles and the headings of the publications, that really doesn't give too much information about the actual contents of the publications and also how they are connected to the proposed project. Okay, so that was about how to create this winning proposal. And now moving on towards describing my home university. So applying to University of Turku as a host organization. And here are some pictures from the main campus of the University of Turku. And it's an inspiring and international academic community of 25,000 students and employees, and it has a campus close to the city center, and staff and students from over 100 countries. And 5 years ago, we turned 100. So the University of Turku was founded in 1920, and we are the first Finnish language university in Finland, which I'm guessing also means in the entire world. And the University of Turku has long academic roots, you could say. The first university in Finland, the Royal Academy of Turku, operated in the city of Turku from 1640 onwards to 1828. And just briefly about the structure of the university, and I just wanted to mention these because if you are considering applying to our university, trying to find a supervisor it would be easier if you first find a suitable faculty to house your project, because then you can try to get to know the faculty and then try to find the right department to house the project, and then finally, for example, a professor who would be the supervisor. So in our university, we have 8 faculties for education, for humanities, law, medicine, science, social sciences, technology, and also a Turku School of Economics. We also have 4 independent units which closely resemble faculties. So a Center for Language and Communication Studies, a Turku PET Center, and a Finnish Center for Astronomy with ESO, and also Turku Bioscience Center. And then finally, I wanted to mention these multidisciplinary themes. These are quite a new addition to our university. So there are 5 of these, and basically these are used to bring together researchers from different fields and different faculties who are working on similar topics. So, for example, future technologies and digital society, and health diagnostics and drug development, children, young people and learning, cultural memory and social change, biodiversity and sustainability. And these, again, I want to mention because if you don't happen to find a supervisor through the faculties or the independent units, these multidisciplinary themes can be used to find the supervisor. So how to get started if you wish to apply with University of Turku as a host organization? So the first method would be to get to know the multidisciplinary themes, and once you've gone over their website, and you would try to locate a supervisor, and then contact that person and just simply propose your idea and say that you would be willing to apply to University of Turku as a host organization, and that's based on what you've read from the website about the supervisor. You'll see likely that you have some joint interests and joint topics that would be suitable for you to do research together on. And if you found a suitable theme, so one of these multidisciplinary themes, but you didn't find a supervisor, you can always contact a theme coordinator. There are email addresses provided of the theme coordinators on the website, and you can just simply ask for their help in locating a supervisor for your project. Now, another method would be to go over the faculties and do a similar kind of search. And then the third one, if you have access to AI, which I'm guessing most of you do, you could just consult AI with a prompt saying, so my research idea is this and this, and then also ask who at the University of Turku in Finland is conducting similar research, and I'm guessing you'll get quite good results from that because of course the AI will have access to internet and also the University of Turku website. But if all of these 3 methods fail for some reason, you have the option of contacting our research services. So through email, researchservices@utu.fi, and then either me or one of my colleagues will be there to answer your questions. And we will try to connect you with a suitable supervisor. But then again, after that, it's up to you and the supervisor to make a decision of whether to proceed with the application process or not. And if the supervisor says, yes, I am willing to act as the supervisor and you are welcome to apply, you as the applicant will need to register as an applicant. And at that stage, you will need to provide a CV and a list of publications, and also just a preliminary topic of your research project. So those will be asked in the registration form. And if you are accepted as an applicant, and as I said, the supervisor is willing to help you in the application process, you will gain access to an online platform with guidelines, successful applications, and also proposal tips. And you will get to take part in several online workshops, kind of like this one, dedicated to improving your proposal. And then me or one of my colleagues will provide comments on your proposal for one time. And these can be used by you to improve the quality of your proposal. And now, Jay, let's move to the third quiz of the presentation. And this was the one that you posted first. Yes.
On the screen right
no.
now.
Sorry, again, this is the wrong one. So
I'm
I'm
sorry.
looking for the one that is about how much time the applicants are willing to spend on proposal preparation.
Right. Sorry about that. There we go. This is the one, right?
I can't see it, but I'll have to trust your word.
Yeah, how much time are you willing to spend on proposal preparation?
Yeah. Actually, I saw the first two quizzes, but for some reason I can't see this one. But yeah, it's okay.
We're getting our answers in. This time they are more sure of what they're answering than the first time. So it seems like they've learned a little bit throughout the session. The answers are
Good.
different. All right. It seems it was quite fast. We see no more answers coming in. So let's share the results in 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, nice. So I ask, now that you know what the proposal should include, estimate how much time you are willing to spend on proposal preparation. It's nice that none of you said that you'll be spending 0 to 2 weeks. I was expecting at least someone to say that they'll spend about, let's say, a week or so. And about a quarter of all of you say that they'll be spending 2 to 4 weeks for the proposal preparation. And then 76% said that over a month. And I'm guessing these answers are quite likely in a way, or they reflect reality in a way. It does take time to create a winning proposal, because there are, of course, different sides to it, and different sections, and also say ethics parts and stuff like that, and then there's also the keeping in touch with the supervisor, which might take time, and all of those kind of things. And then of course also like really planning the training activities that might take some time. But Yes, I'm guessing it's likely that maybe most of you will be spending just a bit over a month on proposal preparation. Just a few weeks ago, I talked to a successful applicant who came here to our university and asked her how much time she spent on proposal preparation and well, she didn't mention like an exact time, but then again, she did mention that she began preparing the proposal about 6 months before the call deadline, and of course, she didn't use the entire time to draft the proposal because she also had other duties and writing research articles and whatnot. But I think it was a reasonable timeline because then you're not in too much of a hurry. And one thing that she stressed was that she kept asking for critique from her colleagues and of course her supervisor. And she also went to at least one conference where she presented her like at least the initial idea of her project and tried to get comments on it. And so in that way, she like constantly kept improving the quality of the proposal, and of course that does take time. And also it does take time to read up on the previous research. So there is a lot of reading and writing to be done when creating a successful proposal. But actually, that's it from me. I'll just have to see whether I have any more slides. Just a moment. No, that's it. So with this, I just wanted to say good luck with your application and hopefully you'll find a suitable host organization and a great supervisor for you. And do keep the University of Turku in mind if you are looking to locate to a northern part of Europe. Thank you. And now let's move on to the
Let's
questions.
go. Lauri, thank you so much for taking the time for this extensive presentation. We've having some really delightful comments on it in the chat. Let's waste no more time because we have about a half an hour dedicated for Q&A. We have a lot of questions. I can already tell beforehand that probably not all questions will be answered. You still have time to pose a question and to vote on the questions that you want to be answered first. That's how we will go through the order of questioning. I'll start with some questions that I've already answered in the chat box because they were very similar. So I will start with three broad questions that a lot of people brought up during the webinar, and then I will move forward to more standalone questions that were highly voted here in our Q&A box. So first off, it's about the global fellowships and the European fellowships. Some people had a little bit of doubts about that. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that global fellowships are less funded than European ones. So does this mean that European fellowships are also less competitive or more likely to be funded? This is a double part question. So let's start with that.
Yeah. So I believe the funding percentage is actually quite similar in both. So European and global fellowships. It's just that there are there are fewer applicants to the global fellowship. So basically, you can go with either one, and keep in mind that the overall success percentage is around. Well, of course, it depends by year, but it's usually around 10 to say 16%.
And the follow-up to that is, How does the level of competition compare between the two schemes, between the number of applicants, success rates? You've answered this a little bit already. And just to clarify, is it possible to apply for both a European and a global fellowship in the same call?
Unfortunately not. You can only submit just one proposal in one call. So you will have to choose either one.
All right. Let's move on then to a couple of questions about the secondments and the NAPs. So could you explain broadly the role and strategic value of secondments and the non-academic placement in an MSCA proposal?
Yes. And first of all, this is a great question. I love to talk about secondments. So first up, I think they are really useful for the applicant's career because they tend to open up, for example, work possibilities. However, there's the difficulty of including secondments because then you have to describe them in the proposal in almost the same detail as the actual host organization. And unfortunately, that takes quite a bit of space from the proposal. And of course, that means that you have to cut something else out. And remember that you only have 10 pages to use for your scientific proposal. So there's really no place to like cut things out or yeah. So I don't know what the bottom line here is, but um, I think yeah. So I think I could say that if you don't have secondments included in your proposal, um, this will not be seen as a weakness in any sense.
Yeah, because the follow-up to this is, does including a secondment or an MEP increase the chances of success? From what you've said, it's
It
not
really
really
doesn't.
something
No.
that's it really doesn't. And this is a particular question on this. Is it possible to carry out field work during a secondment, particularly one of
Yes.
around 3 months in the case of this attendee?
Yes. I think actually that would be one of the most usual ways to spend a secondment. So in that case, you would perhaps travel to another country and then carry out the experiments or gather data, and you would be in contact with a local university and and also a person who can act as your supervisor while you are there. So that would be a secondment. However, if you just want to make short trips to, say, other countries and then gather data, but you don't need a supervisor there, then that would count as a short visit.
Amazing. So onwards to our next broad question. This is about supervisors. And we had some question about this in the Q&A, but I also noticed a lot of people in the chat talking about this. And the question is as follows. So since securing a supervisor is a key part of applying for the fellowship, what's the
Yeah.
best way to approach and connect with potential supervisors or host institutions, especially when emails go unanswered often?
Um, well, I'd say that at least in Finland, if you send an email to a person's like personal email address, I don't think it will be left unanswered. And that's why you'll need to like really find the right supervisor instead of trying to send emails to like broader email addresses. You'll need to find a specific person. And well, of course, I've seen a lot of like these emails when we have potential applicants trying to find supervisors and then also connecting with these supervisors. I think it's enough in the first email to say that my name is this and this, and I'm a postdoc from this university, and I've been looking at the possibility of applying for a PF funding, and I noticed that you have done research on this topic, and I'm also interested in it. So perhaps we could discuss this further, and usually that results in the supervisor saying that, okay, so sounds cool. Could you send me some more information and possibly your CV? And usually then that gets the ball rolling in a way.
And just to clarify, do applicants need to have a confirmed supervisor and host institution in place before they can begin preparing and submitting a proposal?
Not officially, no. Um, but of course, in order to draft a decent proposal, um, you will need to have a host organization in mind, and also a supervisor. Um, Actually, in a technical sense, you might not be able to create a proposal, because at one of the first stages of creating a proposal in the funding and tenders portal, it does ask for some specific information about the host organization. So it asks for a so-called PIC code, which is used to identify these host organizations. But you can proceed up to that point and then get, for example, the proposal templates. And then at that point, it will ask about the PIC code of the host organization. And hopefully you will have the PIC code and the supervisor, because then you will be able to include in the proposal the name and the email address of the supervisor. And then in that way, the supervisor will also get access to the proposal. So yeah,
Great.
in a
Well,
nutshell, sorry. So in a nutshell, um, get the supervisor excited already, and then begin drafting your proposal.
yeah, we're gonna move on to the most upvoted questions. I'm not gonna start with the most upvoted one. Actually, this is like the third or the fourth one, but it relates a lot with what you were just talking about. So I'll pitch it in first. Since we're talking about host institutions, what kind of assistance can be expected from the organization that the researcher is co-applying with? Or maybe this is not regarding the host institution, actually. Maybe this was my part. The question is, what kind of assistance can be expected from the organization that the researcher is co-applying with? So maybe, yeah, I read that wrong.
Okay. And I'm guessing assistance means during the proposal preparation stage. I'm guessing so. Um, a lot of organizations tend to have quite similar support processes as we have at our university. So they might include some form of grant writers commenting on your proposal. Not all of the universities have this, but at least they have assistance in creating the budget, which of course is also quite easy in itself, but also in providing technical help with preparing the proposal. So I think that can be considered as the minimum level of help that you can expect from the host organizations and their administrative people.
Incredible. So, onwards, a very upvoted question was, does the proposed duration affect the chances of getting approved? I mean, does keeping the duration shorter improve the chances of getting approved?
I'd say that 99.9% of all of the proposals that I have seen have applied for the maximum duration. Because simply simply with a duration of 2 years. That in itself is quite short to accomplish, well, almost anything in research, because you need to have the time to gather data and do the analysis, and then write your research papers. So my advice would be to go for the maximum, but maybe not including the non-academic placement, because that's just something extra. And actually, what I've seen from previous proposals is that it's not too common to actually apply for the non-academic placements.
Our second question relates to the previous one as well. And maybe some people will change their minds after your previous answer. But it's, in your experience, what is a reasonable amount of objectives for a 24-month project?
Yeah. So usually between 3 and 5. I'd say under 3 is not enough, and over 5, that's just overkill. And but of course there are different ways of presenting them. Some tend to have like first objectives, say 2 of them, and then they might include sub objectives underneath the actual objectives. So that's also one way of doing it. But I'd say the most usual number is 3 objectives, because that is doable, it's feasible, and that is well connected to the actually quite short duration of the projects.
All right, moving on. Tracing back to the halfway point of your presentation. For B1, does it need to be fully referenced? And does the bibliography count in the page count?
Yes, it needs to be fully referenced, and everything needs to be included in the 10 pages. Actually, if you try to go over the 10 pages, I think you might be able to submit the proposal, but actually everything that goes over the 10 pages is blocked. So basically, the reviewers will not be able to see what you have written on, say, page 11, 12, or 13 or so.
Okay, moving on. Do the short stays need to be quantified in the proposal?
I don't think you need to provide an exact number of the short stays, but and also you can keep adding them while implementing the project, because you might see that there's a need for additional short stays. But I would include information at least about the most important ones, because then you could include them in the Gantt chart, and also specify why these are needed. For example, co-writing a research paper with someone else from a different university, or maybe going to an archive to gather some data in some other country, and this is key information for the reviewers.
Additionally to this question, how long can a short stay be?
This is something that you will need to check on your own from the guidelines, but my guess would be that it's usually under 2 weeks or so.
Okay, I remember that the guidelines and a lot of useful information that might answer a lot of questions, especially regarding eligibility, is in the chat. If you scroll up a little bit, you will have a comprehensive guide on a lot of these topics. All right, moving on. Now, reapplication.
Yes.
In the case of reapplication for the MSCA, how does the evaluation process work? Is the new application assessed in light of previous feedback?
Again, a good question. Um, So first of all, in the part A, the administrative part of the proposal, the researcher will have to say whether this is a resubmission or not, and sometimes the reviewers will take note of this fact, or maybe not, because it's just a single line within a lot of pages, and I think usually reviewers just tend to look at the proposal as a new one instead of like a new and improved one. However, if the reviewers try to give the resubmitted version scores that are lower than the previous ones, then at that stage they might be actually reminded by an official saying that's okay, so at this point you are trying to give a bit lower scores, and you'll need to really specify why you are giving these scores, or at least try to justify extra well why you are giving these scores.
Amazing. So let's move on to should be a simple answer. Should also be in the guide as well, but a lot of people upvoted this one. How long does the evaluation process take?
It's around 5 months. So 5 months after the deadline, you'll be notified of your scores, and then at that point also, some of you will receive a thumbs up saying that you have been granted the funding, and then there's this so-called grant agreement phase, which means that well, usually you have to answer some questions about the ethical aspects of the proposal, and of course you'll be in contact with the host organization with the drafting of the grant agreement, and let's say after 3 months or so, then you would be able to begin the project. However, you can also delay it, but you will have to see the guidelines for the maximum delay period if you want that.
Incredible. So we're about 10 minutes away from ending our session, and there is two questions which hold a lot of other questions that one of our attendees posed. They've got a lot of upvotes as well. So I will go quickly through each of these topics, and you can provide maybe a short answer because there's a lot of different things, and it seems like a lot of people were interested in knowing about it. So let's try to have this as the end of our Q&A because there's a lot of different topics that we can cover through
Okay.
this loaded question.
Interesting.
So, a little bit of context. Hello, I am currently in the process of writing an MSCA proposal that will primarily rely on qualitative research, e.g., discourse analysis, and will draw on both primary and secondary sources. I would appreciate some guidance on what reviewers typically consider to constitute a strong proposal, along with a few tips regarding the following sections. So let's go through them one by one. You'll answer one. I'll go on to the next one. Let's see how many we can go through. So the first one is open science practices. How can I develop a good, comprehensive, and robust data management plan, a DMP, including adherence to FAIR principles?
Okay. So this is quite a broad question, and I'm trying to keep my answer as short as possible. So my answer would be for you as the applicant to actually contact the host organization, because they usually tend to have administrative people who are experts in this matter. And at least I can say for the Finnish universities, they do have these people employed. Sometimes they might be employed by the university library or maybe the research services, but they would know the answer, and they might even have some like pre-made templates even for you to utilize in creating this
Right.
section of
Actually,
your proposal.
I'll move on to the second part of this question. So there's goes A through I. But the second comment was more upvoted than the first one. So I'll move on to the questions that are in that comment because maybe more people are interested in hearing the answers. This one is on quality and implementation plan. The question is a Gantt chart necessary if there are no defined work packages in my proposal?
Okay, so I know some fields that are not used to working with work packages. So, for example, philosophy might be one. Um, However, I also know some examples of proposals from the field of philosophy that do have work packages. Um, so I don't really see a project that could like avoid the use of work packages. If you are just not familiar with them, try to think them as a way of just dividing dividing up your work in different sections that can then be timed and resourced, and they have a specific beginning and an ending and milestones connected to those. And I think this is a really useful, even you could consider it as an exercise for yourself um, in trying to come up with the, say, the logistics and the feasibility of your project when you are trying to divide every activity to some work package. So I'm I'm all for work packages because that's the, you could say, the foundation of a Gantt chart.
All right. Now we're moving on to a question on gender and diversity. There's also another question that was posed earlier about this. So let's get on to it. What is the best way to justify the absence of a gender dimension or other diversity aspects if they are not relevant to my proposal?
Yeah. So for example, let's say mathematics or physics or astronomy. Um, those can be considered as fields that really don't have like a gender perspective to them, and and then in that kind of case, you can just really briefly address the issue by saying that these gender issues are not relevant in these fields. Uh, but then again, I do believe that these kind of fields are actually a minority. So in most of the fields, you will have to describe gender issues in more detail. And also remember that when discussing these issues, they are not about the, for example, if you are working within a research group, they are not about the gender diversity of the group, but about the actual research that you'll be doing. So, for example, in the case of, say, patients, um, hopefully you'll be aiming for 50% of male and 50% female, and then you will also provide evidence of why this is so, and or if the division is something else, you will have to justify why it's so.
Yeah. So is it a minus to have both a researcher and a supervisor be of the same gender? This is another question that came up in this topic.
This is not a minus nor a plus. It's it's yeah. So it can be either way. This is not something that is reviewed in any way.
All right. Moving on, we have a question on the logical framework, bit of a broad one as well. Do you have any tips for thinking through the relationships between deliverables, impact, objectives, outcomes, and results? I understand the definitions, but often find them abstract and struggle to connect them effectively.
Okay. Um, so first up, let's talk about outputs. So these are usually the research papers, or for example, a patent. So those are outputs, and And then usually the combination of outputs creates some kind of research result, which then can be used by others to further on, for example, their own research. And so what else was mentioned in the list that you described?
So, tips for thinking through the relationships between deliverables, impact, objectives, outcomes, and results. These often seem abstract, and the attendee and several other people struggle to connect them effectively.
Okay. Okay. So I just briefly mentioned outputs. So these are actually the same as deliverables. Um, but then again, deliverables can also be, um, for example, reports about the implementation of the project. So these are not just like research results. Um, but okay, so I'm a bit of struggling with this question. It's so broad. But then again, a good guideline for this question and the person who was asking is that at least the guideline for applicants does include in the beginning um, a short section of like describing all the uh, key terms used, and I believe that's at least most of the terms that you asked clarification about were mentioned in the guide of applicants.
All right, so we're on the last minutes, so let's kick the last question of this list off, and unfortunately, it will be the last one of our session today. And it goes as follows. In ERC grants, the CV and scientific publications are crucial. To what extent do reviewers in the MSCA take into account the quality of scientific publications?
Um, to put it shortly, less than in ERC. Um, I'm guessing the reason is that in MSCA PF the applicants are usually just younger um, or younger in their career stage than in ERC, and and I might refer back to what I said in my presentation about the fact that at least from my perspective, usually the reviewers try to find all of the answers that they are looking for in the B1, so the scientific part of the proposal instead of the CV. So the CV is usually just used as like a backup, just to check up on things. And in the B1, you should be really careful, or actually try well to justify what you have accomplished up until this date of the proposal preparation, and then also describe what you can do within the project period and also after. So, for example, ERC doesn't have this kind of perspective of like developing the researchers or the applicants. So this is more like a PF thing. So as I said, it's all connected to training of the researcher through creating excellent research.
All right. So this marks the end of this session. I want to thank first of all Lauri for taking the time to enlighten all of the people who came here today. Also thanking all of the people who attended today and who left amazing feedback in the chat. Also for all the questions that went unanswered. Unfortunately, we don't have more time, but feel free to contact the research services at University of Turku if you still have a lot of questions. Also, if you are interested in using the mobility aspect to pursue the fellowship in the University of Turku, maybe you have the luck with working with our with our colleague Lauri in the future. And then again, I'll remind you that this has been recorded and we will upload this recording on YouTube to you to revisit and to share with people who could not attend. Please take the time to fill out the little questionnaire at the end. It will be automatically pop up in your browser. It will help us a lot to see the impact and how we can do more events like this in the future. From my end, I'm Jose Batista from Cogitative Press. You can find us on LinkedIn and on YouTube as well. And thanks a lot. And I'll see you in the next event. Lauri, thank you again.
Thank you. It was nice.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.